Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Managing Your Finances During a Pandemic webinar. First and foremost, NICOA would like to thank AARP for being a part of this discussion today. And to get started, we'll have a short prayer for Larry. Go ahead.
Good morning, everyone listening out there. Thank you very much for joining us. My name is Larry Curl. I'm the Executive Director of the National Indian Council on Aging. As it is with any Indian and tribal communities, every meeting usually begins with a prayer, hopefully that it provides serenity and peace to people that are listening in. And I will do this prayer in my native Navajo language. No di kon di shingo hil na ta huil neto ita huil a hiki bin ye na date hala kon en hit en hi masa don hi che dan leni which en da has eto which en da hui now da hot eto kon di ado le yarn leni ban sete kes hit ale ba ta huil yado le hat I hit ale ya da huil yado le ne jeune ko e naste ni karlo et anitsen e ya kon det så det en e na sleto le goed ade ya kon Distingo, ich hil nata hui na yat nata ni kato let adot ego, a hehe enan dishnido les no sanchima yadil je. Hajon hustling, hajon hustling, hajon hustling, hajon hustling. Thank you.
No, thank you, Larry, for that beautiful prayer. And thank you, everyone, for being a part of this discussion today. My name is Desiree Lapahi. I'm a member of the Navajo Nation. Yate she Desiree Lapahi Edishye. Yate shik e doshne. I am the data analyst here at NICOA, but today I will be your moderator. Now, today's webinar will be focused on starting 2021 with a fresh approach to meeting your goals. Next slide, please. Now is the perfect time to reset your cash flow, housing, retirement, and financial priorities. Here to talk to us about managing your finances during a pandemic is Martin Booker. Martin Booker is a program manager at AARP, where he leads various financial education initiatives about investing, Social Security, and budgeting for the organization's 32 million membership base. After receiving a master's degree in social work at the University of Connecticut, Martin worked in the nonprofit sector in Washington, D.C., and developed a passion for helping people improve their money habits. During his time, he completed the Certified Financial Planner program at Georgetown University and learned how to teach others about money in a practical and actionable way. He has provided individual and group coaching services and classes and leads workshops about credit, investing, retirement planning, and other finance-related topics. Martin uses speaking opportunities to engage and educate people to better understand how to not only make, but keep their money. And without further ado, here is Martin.
Desiree, thank you for your introduction. I really appreciate it. And thank you all for joining us today. I'm very excited about this opportunity to talk about personal finance and more specifically managing your money during this pandemic. So we are still in the midst of a pandemic. While we're now starting to hear about the vaccines and other arrangements, we have new leadership that may operate differently within this pandemic. But we are very much still in the midst of it, and we're working on what to do to properly manage this pandemic. So I want to give three very important things to keep in mind when we think about this pandemic and when we think about our finances during this pandemic. The first is that there's still a lot of uncertainty. We're still figuring out, or the country is still figuring out how to manage the pandemic, when the vaccines will be available to all people. And our businesses are still opening and closing every day. So our economy is still in in flux. So with that in mind, one of the important things that you want to do and you want to think about is continuing to keep your money liquid. We want to make sure that we still have our money accessible. So being liquid is the same as being easily accessible. So, instead of thinking, oh, now that I'm not traveling to work, I can take that money and put it in the stock market. Maybe you hold on to that money, you save it and you hold it in a bank account so that we can have the opportunity to save up even more while while this uncertainty is taking place. The next thing that I'll mention is we do have more opportunities to make money or reduce our expenses because of this pandemic. So in any space where you've been able to either cut expenses or you've had more time to make money, then you want to be able to take advantage of those things and be intentional about it if we can. So those opportunities will be here for us because of the pandemic. So we want to continue to take advantage of that and just be very intentional about that time and what we do at that time. Or those opportunities to save or make money. That's been something that has significantly increased for people during this pandemic, which has led right into number 3, which is we've seen more opportunities for fraudulent activities during this pandemic. There's, with all of the government payouts that have come, with the loans that have been given out, and just with the amount of additional time that people have available. If you have more time, the opportunities for individuals who like to provide scams or other imposters who like to consider and create fraudulent opportunities, they've been increasing during this time. So you want to make sure that you're doing your due diligence when you're getting an email, when you're getting anything in the mail that talks about COVID relief or stimulus relief, or this may be your stimulus payment. Be sure to look further into these requests of your information so that you can make sure that you're not being taken advantage of by a scam. One good place to refer to is the AARP Fraud Watch Network in these situations. We do have a fraud hotline, which you can where you can go and just learn more about, or you can report scams, or you can learn more about the types of scams that have been out there based on these different opportunities. So those are our 3 things: the uncertainty, the opportunities to make or save more money, and the increased fraudulent activities that have happened are all things that we've seen during this pandemic when it comes to our money.
Wow, those are really great things to be informed about. Okay, but can you go ahead and go to the next slide, please? And just a little housekeeping note, if you have any questions during this webinar, you can go ahead and drop down to the Q&A box or to the chat box and ask the question, and we will go over those questions at the end of this webinar. Thank you. So on this slide, American Indians and Alaska Natives use credit and debit cards. Now, can you tell us what are the benefits of using a credit card and/or debit card, and is one more beneficial than the other?
Sure, I'd be happy to. So we know that the use of credit cards and debit cards, as opposed to using cash, it helps us out in a few ways, right? So the debit cards, we know that the money within those, it's in an FDIC insured account. So typically, if you're using a debit card, it's linked to your bank account, and that bank account is insured by the government, so that if there's any fraudulent activity, your money is covered up to typically $250,000. So that's the typically the dollar amount that you could leave in a bank account, and that if some fraud was to take place, that money would be covered, or you'd be able to get it back because it's insured. So one of the important things to think about in that situation is, if I'm using my debit card and I am keeping money in a bank, I do want to, one of the most important questions to ask with any bank that you're opening, or a credit union if you're using one, is, are you all FDIC insured? Because that will be a good way for you to know that my money is covered if something was to happen. So, a benefit of the credit card and the debit card is that, it reduces your chances of losing money because it is tracked. It's tracked in a better way, and it helps with those instances of fraud. And to your second question, you ask, is one more beneficial than the other? I wouldn't say that one's more beneficial than the other. I would say that they have different uses. So when we think about our credit card, we know it's linked to the bank, it's linked to our bank account. And every time we swipe our debit card, that's money coming directly from us. Whereas with our credit card, that's borrowed money. So that's going to be, when we swipe that card, that's money that we have to pay back. And now your credit card, we can use that to build our credit. So that's one of the ways that we can build our credit when we're thinking about making larger purchases, like buying houses, home improvement, and things like that. And or starting a business, we want to make sure that we have some established credit history, but we also want to just make sure that we're careful not to spend more than we can pay back with our credit cards, because while it becomes a tool that can help you build your credit and make larger purchases, if we overspend and we use it in a way that isn't beneficial to us, then it will allow us to not be able to do those things.
Okay, I see. Can we go on to the next slide, please? Okay, and this slide is American Indians and Alaska Natives seek advice on financial products and services. Now, Martin, what should people keep in mind when thinking about finding a financial professional?
Yeah, that's actually a great question. So, and we know when it comes to financial professionals, they're not all the same. They don't all provide the same service. So we do want to make sure that we're finding the right type of professional for us. So I'll give you a couple of steps and a couple of things to think about when you're looking at financial professionals. So to start, when it comes to looking for a financial professional, we know that they're beneficial to us, but the first thing you want to do is think about the area of need for you. And what type of professional do you need? So you want one that specializes in your area of need. So if you're in a position where you have to, let's say, you want to build your credit, and you know that right now that's very much what you need to focus on, then you want to find an advisor or a financial professional that's well versed in that area and who specializes in that area, so that you know that they'll be able to help you with the area that you need. Because we know financial professionals, they range they focus in so many topics, right? When we think about our insurance, individuals who sell life insurance versus individuals who sell health insurance, or someone who's an accountant and focuses on tax planning versus someone who's an investment advisor. These are all different types of professionals, and some of them focus specifically in one area. And if that's the case, then for you want to pinpoint what do I need first, and then seek out the professional that can help you where you need help. The next thing that you want to think about is their experience. You want to make sure that they have experience working with customers like you. So if you are, if your income range is, let's say, 30 to 50,000, and you go to a high net worth financial advisor, then they may not have been able to work with, they may not have worked with customers that are in a similar financial position as you. And in that case, it may be a bit harder for them to know the nuances of your personal your financial situation. So be sure to make sure that they have experience with customers similar to you. And then the next thing you want to do is check their credentials. So if they say that they specialize in insurance, then maybe ask them, what kind of licenses do you have? What studies, what advanced studies have you done in this space, so that you can make sure that you have an advisor or a financial professional who has the credentials that you need to be successful. Because we know in the financial space, there's some cases where we have financial professionals who are specifically salespeople, and then we have practitioners. So, you want to make sure that the person that you're working with they actually have done the work, and they've written plans, or they've actually worked with investment strategies, as opposed to just selling you investments that their firm sells, right? So there's two different things, and depending on what you need, that's why it's important to make sure that you know your needs walking in, because you may just need someone who's selling investments as opposed to someone who's who can actually do the work for you and invest your money. So, those are a couple of things to keep in mind when you think about the financial professionals that you want to work with.
And can you give me some examples of some different types of financial advisors? Because I thought they were all just all in one type of deal.
Sure, happy to. So when we think about our financial advisors, so we have, so even starting with this, with the list here. So let's look at these first two on this slide, under the second bullet. So the financial advisor and broker versus the financial planners or certified financial planner. So these are individuals who work in very different ways. So your financial advisor, may be someone who can advise you on multiple topics and who can talk to you about your investments, but also they may give you a high level overview of your taxes, or the any tax implications to what to your investments. They may be able to tell you, if you want to sell your house, these are the things to think about and the things that will matter later. So that's something that your advisor might do. Your broker, they may sell specific investments. So if you wanted to go and buy some stock in, let's say, Walmart, your broker could help you just buy that stock, but they may not advise you in a deeper way and actually have the deeper conversation with you about your investments. Now, when we talk about a financial planner or a certified financial planner, these are individuals who have studied a wide array of information about investments and typically, about your financial situation. So they've studied a little bit on insurance, they've studied some on taxes, they studied some on investments, they've studied estate planning, and they've studied retirement planning. So while they may not be an expert in all of them, they have some expertise in all of them, so they can write you a financial plan and they'll likely look at your entire situation and be able to tell you what you need or how best to move forward in your situation. So, there are different types of advisors and different types of financial planners. And if you were to go to a certified financial planner, you still want to ask the same question: what's your expertise? Because some may be great in taxes, some may be great in estate planning, some may be great in retirement planning. And if what you really needed to focus on was getting out of debt or focus on college savings, then going to someone who's great at retirement planning may not be the right advisor for you. So one of the things to look out for within the next week, AARP is launching a tool called Interview an Advisor. And the Interview an Advisor tool is a tool that you can use. It's a comprehensive tool that you walk through that will give you all the things to talk to an advisor about and all the things to learn from a financial professional during your meeting with the financial professional. It's a 4-part tool that will walk you through everything to know. And it even has a checklist. So while you're sitting with your financial professional and you're interviewing them before you take on their services, you can walk through a checklist and ask all the questions that we've recommended to that planner so that you can know if you're getting the right type of planner for you before you hire your planner. And that's an important thing to remember. You hire the planner, they don't hire you, right? So that first conversation shouldn't be your last conversation. And walking out the door, if they're constantly selling you, you want to make sure you walk out, think about it, and use our Interview an Advisor tool so that you can replay that conversation and find out, did they answer everything that I really needed to know so that I'm picking the best advisor for me.
I see. And is that new tool going to be open? Is it going to be open to everyone, and is it free?
Yeah, great questions. Those are very great questions. And the answer is yes to both. It is completely free and it is open to anyone. You would just go to interviewanadvisor.com and you'll be able to use the tool. So be on the lookout for it, and we'll make sure that we get that information to you all to send out to everyone once it's available.
Okay, sounds exciting. Can we go to the next slide, please? Okay, American Indian, Alaska Native average household income. Martin, do you have any additional thoughts on this slide?
Yes, I will say I love this slide. When I read this slide and read these statistics, I was very excited. So I want to start by saying, first, congratulations to everyone who has a positive net worth. That is a great thing. It's always a good thing to see and to know that a positive net worth of almost 191,000. That's a great place to be. And if you're still working at it and you're still building your net worth, that's perfectly fine as well. There's always time, and it's a process. It's a lifelong process because our money's going to always continue to grow. We're going to save more. There's going to be ups and downs within our finances, but we'll always continue to build. So when we think about net worth, I want to make sure that I just speak to what that is. Our net worth is typically, it's what we own minus what we owe. And so just to give you an example of that, if you own a home and that home is worth $200,000, let's just, for the sake of some easy math, $200,000, and you now owe $100,000 remaining on that house because you've paid it down. And let's for the sake of this example say that that's all your assets. It's this one house, and that's the balance, and that's what it's worth. Then that would mean that your net worth is $100,000 because you own a house that's worth $200,000 and you've paid off $100,000. So now there's still a difference of $100,000, and that would be your net worth. So it's what you own minus what you owe. If you still owe $200,000, then your net worth will be a zero right now until you pay it down, and every payment will increase your net worth as you pay on it. So that's something to think about. When it comes to your net worth, you want to continuously reduce your debt so that you improve your net worth. Your other option is to continue to save, keep your money, so saving it, and then growing your money through investments and other assets that are going to go up in value, such as home values, right? So our home, if it's worth 200,000, there's an opportunity that it could continue to rise. It could go up to 215, it could go up to 220, depending on the housing market in our area. So when we own assets like homes, when we own things like businesses, which can go up in value, when we own other investments like stocks, bonds, mutual funds, all of these different types of investments that after you purchase them, they have the opportunity to rise or drop in value, which they can go up and they can also go down. But when they go up, our net worth goes up. So, owning these types of things and keeping these types of things are the things that's going to continue to rise our net worth. Our net worth is beneficial at the point in which we're thinking about retirement, but also when we think about passing down money and other valuables to our children and our families. These are the times when our net worth become very important for us. So, continue to build that up, continue to grow it, and it will continue to help us out and be beneficial to us and our families in the future.
Wow, I'm really glad you were able to explain net worth. I was like, net worth, what is that? And can you actually go further into explaining what do you mean by positive net worth? Is it just the money that you have after you have like the house payment and then what you owe?
Yep, so sure. So your positive net worth, so it's everything that you own. So because it is possible to have a negative net worth. So what happens is, as long as I own things of value, everything that I have of value, I add up the value, or I go get, you may have to go get it appraised so that you know how much it costs, so and the list of things can be, it's a wide range of things. This can be cars, it can be homes, this can be collectibles, this is cash that you have on hand, your retirement accounts, any money that you're investing within like the stock market. All of these things are added up towards your net worth. And now we take everything that you owe and we subtract it from that number. So right now, if we took all of those things and those things were, they had a positive value, they all had value. And now we start to subtract out anything we owe: student loans, credit card debt, car loans, house, our mortgage payments, personal loans, all of these things. Now we subtract that out because those are considered our liabilities. And now if what we own has a higher value than what we owe, we have a positive net worth. If what we owe has a higher value than what we own, we have a negative net worth. And so now in that case, we have to pay things down more in order to get our net worth positive. Does that make sense?
Yes, thank you for explaining that. It makes sense now.
Good.
Can we go ahead and go to the next slide, please? All right, cash flow, where we are, where we want to go. So Martin, can you tell us more about these action steps?
Sure. Yep. And so when we look at these, cash flow, it can be a tough thing. And we all understand, especially at a time like this, right? We're in a pandemic. We know that there's been job loss. There's been hours cut, right? It's been really tough during this time. And we know that individuals are facing more financial barriers than they were before. So the financial burdens are getting higher. We know that individuals may not be able to save as much as they've wanted to, but to look at this and know that 42% of people are saving money for a specific purpose. That's encouraging, because we know if we put a real name or a real purpose to what we want to save for, then we'll save. So for everyone listening, everyone watching, I want you to go, think of that one thing that is worth saving money for. If you need to save, think about that thing that's worth saving money for. And I want you to, mark it down, put a dollar amount to it, and continue and start saving towards that thing. It could be it could be education for a child. It could be, it could even be vacation. If you want to have a good time and you just want to take a trip, always have a specific purpose that you're saving for, because that actually does help you and motivate you to continue to save, because you know what you're going after. Typically when you're saving and you don't really have a goal, or you don't have a reason to save, it kind of, that's when, at those times when it's like, hey, I'd rather just spend a little bit, it becomes a little easier, right? Because it's like, I'm not really saving this money for anything in the first place. So always keep something in mind and continue to save, and to know that 42%, I can imagine that's a good number. And in order to grow that, they tell us right there within the text, find that specific purpose and find your reason for saving. So when we think about these action steps, this is something, this is a great way to just kind of check your spending habits. We want to make sure that we're constantly thinking about why we spend the way we spend. So what we're saying to do here is to go back into your bank statements and take a look at your March and your April bank statements. That was right around the time when the pandemic happened, in March and April 2020. So go back and look when the pandemic started. At that time, there was so much uncertainty. A lot of us stayed home and we just didn't know what to do next. So we actually were saving a little bit of money, right? Like we weren't doing as many things as we were before. We were cooking at home more because we were afraid to have food come to our homes. We weren't going out, so we were doing things that were a little different, which may have brought down some of our expenses. So look at your expenses in March and April of 2020, and then compare that to your expenses in, let's say, August of 2020, when things started to open up a little bit more, and we may have gotten a little more comfortable and started going back to some of our old, going back to doing some of our daily habits from the past. And now once you look at those two things, I want you to do a comparison of what were the new things that I started to spend my money on, or what were the things that I stopped spending my money on in March and April. Look at the difference in how much you may have been saving. And now ask yourself, what could you possibly eliminate or reduce those expenses for the long haul? And when you do that, ask yourself, on the other side of this pandemic, what expenses would you be able to eliminate for good or reduce for good? And once you find that, then redirect that money to that specific purpose, with whether that's retirement saving, whether that's investing, whether that's reducing your debt, whatever you need to, whatever is important for you at this moment. Find that difference between what you were saving in March and April versus what you started spending later, and redirect that money towards your new specific purpose. And this last thing, listing your expenses as needs and wants. This is actually a great exercise. Take a list of all of your bills, everything, all of your expenses and everything you pay each month, and you put it in one of two categories. It's either a need or it's a want. Nothing sits in the middle. So you have to determine every item that you spend money on, if it's going to be a need or if it's going to be a want, and calculate those two columns. And if your necessities, like maybe, you know, whatever that could be, electricity, insurance, those things are considered necessities. If you pay the same amount in your liabilities, your wants, then you may want to look at your want column and say, how can I possibly reduce this sum so that I have room to save money or to pay down debt or whatever it is that you need to focus on.
I like those steps. They seem very, like, you start small and then as you go further, you can save some more. So can we go ahead and go to the next slide, please? Okay, housing, how to decide. So Martin, can you explain this little gross monthly household income for me,
Sure.
please?
Yeah, definitely. So when we think about gross, and that's what, so as it mentions on this slide, most housing counselors, their thought is that 28% of your gross monthly household income is what you should spend on housing. So when we think about that, so per month, our gross monthly income is the amount that you make before taxes and other insurances and things are taken out. So, you know, you get your paycheck, you know, you'll see that you brought home, let's say you brought home $950. But when you look at the top at that full amount that you made before all the taxes and health insurance and everything else came out, it said that you made $1,500. And you're wondering, where'd the rest of my money go? You know, like what's all that money going into? That 1,500 was your gross monthly income, and the 950 was your oh, I'm blanking on it now. Your net income. There we go. Your net income. So, and that was your after tax income. So what they're saying is that in these cases, you want to not spend more than 28% of your gross income on housing alone. And so, and I'll take that a step further and just talk about that in the context of the average household income that was mentioned on the other slide. So they said $69,000 was the average household income. So that would be a gross income of $5,750 per month. That's so before taxes and anything else is taken out, that's $5,750. 28% of that would be $1,610. So when you think about how much you want to spend on your housing cost, so your rent or your mortgage, you want to try not to exceed $1,610 a month if possible. Now we know sometimes, you know, housing can be a bit pricey depending on where you want to live, housing districts and things like that. So in those cases, we can get creative. We can increase our household income by sharing housing, multi-generational housing, where we're living with, you know, the grandparents and we're living with our parents, or we're living with other siblings in order to share some of the cost. You know, these are ways to bring down the cost of housing and to increase the household income in order to allow yourself to be able to cover other expenses and properly save and eliminate debt. So that 28%, it will allow you to have the additional money to take care of other expenses.
And would that 28% just be like the mortgage payment on the house, or would that also include the homeowner association fees, the taxes, the utilities? Would that also be in that 28%? Do you understand?
Yep. So best case scenario is that you can fit most of those into the 28%. If you can, definitely do so. And these are, you know, these are those additional expenses that you want to always consider when you're about to purchase. So, but within typically the 28% is your monthly expenses, which would be the rent or the mortgage. That's what they will focus on. And then these other expenses can be covered outside of that. Because there are some other creative ways. You know, you think about lawn care, that could be something that you do yourself, which could keep that expense down. Some of these can be done in other ways, but the 28% is typically your rent or your mortgage payment. That's a great question. I'm glad you asked that.
Thank you. Okay, can we move on to the next slide, please? Ooh, retirement. What are the options? Now, what are some important steps to prepare for retirement now?
Definitely. Thanks for that question. So when we think about our retirement, I want to give one stat to just encourage everyone so on average, more than 75% of all people, regardless of work status, regardless of race, regardless of income, believe that they're behind on their retirement savings. So it's even people who are ahead on their retirement savings, they typically believe that they're behind. It's one of those things that's a little harder to just wrap your head around because it seems so far away, but then it shows up right at your doorstep before we know it, right? So as we say, the time flies. So if you're feeling overwhelmed about retirement, I just want to encourage you to know that you're not alone. And there are things that you can do to work on it and to get a sense of what your numbers really are. So when we think about retirement, I want to make sure that there's a few things that you know. One of the most important things that you want to know is how much you could possibly need to retire. So you want to start with that. And a lot of times that's based on your lifestyle, the lifestyle that you want to lead, you want to have when you retire. Do you want to travel the world? Do you want to give to charities and be extremely generous? Are you a person who just likes to kind of sit back and relax? It could be like my grandmother. My grandma, she just likes to relax and be home. She's a homebody. She doesn't like to spend much. She doesn't drive much, so but she likes to help out her grandchildren and great grandchildren a lot financially. So, think about the lifestyle that you want to lead, and you can start to think about how much would that lifestyle cost? What is that? What will it cost you? And you could go to the AARP. We have an AARP retirement calculator that will be a great tool to just type in the numbers. And walking through that tool, they'll help you to figure out how much would you possibly need to retire, how much do you currently have, and they'll give you steps on how to fill that gap. The other important thing to look at is we have a tool at AARP called Ace Your Retirement. And www.aceyourretirement.org, you'll be able to walk through a process of figuring out how do you best handle your retirement. And what steps do you need to either save more or reduce your debt? So know how much you need first, and then you want to begin to, if you need to save more, then begin saving and investing so that your money will be growing while you're saving. If you still have some working years, you want to use that to save money and put that money into, if you have a work retirement account, be sure that that money's being invested so that it can grow for you. And then your last option is also to just look at, if you know that you need to save and grow more money, then look at places where you could possibly cut expenses so that you can continue to move more money into saving for your retirement. But retirement will come around faster than we all expect. So continue to save and begin to be intentional about taking those steps now so that you can prepare for retirement.
Okay, and AARP has two different types of tools to help with retirement. They have the retirement calculator and then the ACE Your Retirement.
Yes, Ace Your Retirement. Yep, two great tools to help you on your path to retirement.
Okay, well, that's great to hear. Okay, can we go ahead and go to the next slide, please? All right, priorities, being prepared. How do we figure out where to start, and has that changed now that we're in a pandemic?
Yeah, that's a great question. That's a great question. And when we look at these action steps, right? We know all of us can be in completely different places when it comes to preparing for just being prepared and prioritizing what step to take next. So looking at this list, you want to look and see like what place are you, which step are you on right now? So when we think about, first your emergency fund, that's always a critical step, because we want to make sure that we don't have to increase our debt or take out, take out like predatory loans or things like that in the time of need, or we don't have to completely deplete our savings at a time of need. So setting up your emergency fund, which is typically 3 to 6 months worth of your expenses, is always a good start. So think of, if you were to calculate everything that you spend for a month, and aim to save 3 to 6 months of those expenses, that's where you would start with your emergency fund. And now if that's the step that you're on, you can start there. If you're further down the line where you're just holding on to cash, or you're working on staying liquid or keeping your money easily accessible, those are very similar things, then you can move to that step. Now that we're in a pandemic, we do kind of, because of the uncertainty, we do want to make sure that we're keeping cash on hand, and and not necessarily cash. We just want to make sure that our money is easily accessible. If it's tied up in the stock market and the stock market decides to drop, then our money is in that position and it's dropped along with the stocks. And then we'll have to wait for that money to come back. So we want to, when it comes to our priorities during a pandemic, staying liquid or having our money easily accessible is a great step. But also saving for these unexpected events like this pandemic is a critical one, because we get new state orders and city orders often where, our jobs can be placed on hold. And we want to make sure that we do have some money saved for those moments. So within this, you start where you kind of do that assessment of your finances, and you can decide where you need to start. But due to this pandemic, I would say that it's very important to make sure that we're saving, we're holding on to our cash. And then looking at these resources, the one resource that I would mention here is our AARP Money Map. It's a good idea to look at the AARP Money Map. We focus on two very important spaces. One is handling unexpected expenses. So if you had an unexpected medical debt or a large unexpected expense that you want to know how to manage, AARP Money Map can help you to manage that. Or the other one is our debt manager. So if you are inundated with credit cards and other loans that you're trying to pay down, look at AARP Money Map's debt manager to help you with an action plan for paying down your debt.
And again, is the AARP Money Map free for everyone?
Definitely. And that's good. And I will say, every tool that I'm mentioning, it's free and it's open to all ages, to anyone who would like to use it. So that you can find at aarpmoneymap.org. So please take a look at our money map.
All right, Martin, thank you so much for this informative discussion. And I don't know if you guys could hear my child in the back.
Oh yeah, and you're very welcome.
And let's go ahead and reset, reimagine, repair your finances. Okay, let's go ahead and go to the chat box to see if there are any questions. And we have one from Amanda. Does your car work like your house with regards to net worth?
The net worth, yes, yep. So the value of your car is added to your net worth. So anytime, and this is a good thing to write down. It's called the Statement of Financial Position. And that's how you calculate. That's a tool that financial planners use to calculate your net worth. So when we look at your statement of financial position, your car would be listed in there as well, because it has value. And then the loan that you still owe on your car, that will be subtracted out on the other side of your statement of financial position as well. Does that make sense?
Yes, I think so. And let's go ahead and wait a little bit more to see if anyone else has any other questions. Actually, I do have a question. Does AARP have any resources on like purchasing your first house, or like a housing calculator?
Yes, actually we do. So yeah, we have so I'd say one great place to look and one great resource is aarp.org/money. So when you go to our money section of our website, we have information on just about any topic you can think of when it comes to your finances. So preparing for retirement, social security, housing, how buying a home, downsizing if you're in a position where you'd like to downsize, any topics that you want to think of, we have information on it. But we do have a mortgage calculator on our website.
And we have another question. What would be the ideal percentage saved from each paycheck?
Yep. So the ideal percentage is so this is kind of this is a industry standard. I would say the industry standard is 20%. So ideally, if you can save 20% of all of your income, and that includes the amount that's going into your retirement account, then that would be an adequate amount to save over your lifetime to prepare yourself for retirement.
Okay, so that would be 20% from your paycheck, correct? And that's
Yes.
a industry known. Okay, next question. How can I find a trustworthy financial planner?
Yep. So I would start with when it comes to finding a good financial planner. Start with, in which a lot of people do, they start with family and friends, right? So you can reach out to anyone who you know that may already be using a financial planner. I always suggest, reach out to someone who you know is financially sound, and who's, if you have a family member in your family who tends to do really well with their finances, and you know that, then maybe ask them, are you using a financial professional? Because referrals can always be a good way to find a good planner. But there are also when you use our interview and advisor tool, there are places where we actually we have by state. There are places where you can go in and look at different. You can find financial planners. There are websites where you can go and look up vetted financial planners from your community. So I would recommend, as soon as our interview and advisor tool launches, be sure to go through it, because we will have places where you can go in and find lists of financial planners by state.
I think that's all the questions that we have for today. Thank you again, Martin, for coming.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
And now I'd like to introduce Larry Curley. Larry Curley is the Executive Director of the National Indian Council on Aging and a member of the Navajo Nation with over 40 years of experience working in the aging and healthcare fields. He has worked with Congress, other branches of the federal government, and national organizations on aging to develop support for programs affecting elder American Indians. After receiving his master's degree in public administration at the University of Arizona, along with a certificate in gerontology, Larry worked as a gerontological planner at an area agency on aging in Pima County, Arizona, where he was instrumental in establishing a county public fiduciary program. As a lobbyist in Washington, D.C., he successfully advocated for the passage of the Title VI of the Older Americans Act, an amendment which he wrote. He also directed the Navajo Nation's Head Start program, one of the 5 largest Head Start programs in the country. Larry has served as a nursing home administrator of a tribal long-term care facility, as a hospital administrator in Northern Nevada, and as a college instructor at the University of Nevada, Reno, and Eastern Washington University. Whew, that's a lot, Larry. Man, you have been busy.
I didn't know you were going to go through all of that, but thank you. I really appreciate, Martin. Thank you very much for updating us on the financial situation of older people now that we are in the middle of a pandemic. And as you also indicated, there's also a light at the end of the tunnel. hopefully with a vaccine coming out, that it will enable our elders to be able to venture out, back out into the world again. So that makes me very hopeful. I guess for me, one of the things that I think about as we talk about money and credit cards and all of that, is that I think back to the days of my dad, who was a very traditional Navajo person, who really took care of his money very well. He didn't have a checking account or a bank that he went to because the town that we grew up in didn't have a bank. And so a lot of it was he handled it all in cash, as a matter of fact. And I think that that's where some of our more traditional elderly people still hang on, to their cash. So it's in Martin's definition, it's liquid, it's easily accessible. And I know my grandma, for example, used to take her money, and she had a little a band around the top of her skirt, and on the inside of it, she'd put all her money inside that band inside of her skirt.
He had a fanny pack.
And that was how she took care of her money. But I think that, right now, with the pandemic, I am hopeful that a lot of our elders, um, do have checking accounts, because it's a whole lot easier. It's much more secure, in accessing those dollars. And one of the really interesting things that is available these days is that once they get their check in the mail, they don't have they don't have to go to their bank, because one of the things that these new smartphones do is that you can take a picture of that check that you got, both the front side and the back side, and you can deposit it using your phone. And it all depends on the bank. For example, I know I have like Wells Fargo, and you can just take your camera on your smartphone, take a picture of it, from both sides, and boom, it's in. It's so you don't even have to go outside, drive to the bank, walk to the bank. You can just take a picture of it, and it's deposited in a checking account. And so one of the things that I would suggest, if that's available to people in the out there that are listening in, is that once you take a picture of that, check, to write the words voided on it, so that no one else can pick it up and cash it, because it will have been already used up. So just take those kinds of precautions. And I think that one of the things too is that a lot of our elders, especially the more traditional ones who are in their 80s, have gone through the depression, and they're still in that mode of thinking of how they hang on to their money or they spend it. It's one of the extremes. One, they spend it all, or they hang on to it for as long as necessary. I remember, for example, my mother used to get paid, and I know she could make that $5 last almost 2 months. And so she was the modern day version of Scrooge, hanging on to that money, and very, uh, very tight with her funds, and managed to save quite a lot in her lifetime. But I would just say again, I want to take this opportunity to say again, for those people that are listening, thank you for listening in. I know you have questions. Keep asking those questions, and we'll try as best as we can to answer those questions. I know Martin is available. There's a lot of resources at AARP, and with the National Indian Council Loan Agency, we want to try to be as responsive as we can to your financial needs as well. So Desiree, thank you very much.
Thank you, Larry, for being a part of this discussion here. And thank you everyone for attending. If you happen to miss any part of the presentation, we will post the video on our website. And just so you'll know where it'll be posted, let me go ahead and, I can't share my screen. But if you go to the NICOA website, to the homepage, you can go ahead and click on the newsroom. And in our newsroom, we have the newsletters, the blog, and just a lot of good information. And you would go under videos, and we have all of our videos posted there. We have another video we did, caregiving in a pandemic. And if you scroll further down, we have another video called Celebration of Native Elders. And then we have the money management during COVID-19, which is okay, here we go. So there's the newsroom. And if you could go ahead and go to videos. Yep. And here is the caregiving in a pandemic, celebration of Native elders. And here is our money management during COVID-19. So this is where you would find this video posted at. And again, I'd just like to say to everyone, thank you for attending. I hope you learned a lot. I know I did. So have a good day, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.